Welcome everybody. This is our first lesson for the 2023 to 2024 session. And yeah, this is the start of a new year. So welcome everybody. This is our YouTube channel for past lesson recordings. You can click on them to see previous year's lessons. And today we'll be teaching chemistry and then doing history and then ending off with physics.
All right, for chemistry, I'm going to be talking about periodic trends. Okay, so first, let's start with atomic radius. It's basically the distance from the atomic nucleus to the valence electron shell, which is the outermost electrons in an atom. Generally, the atomic radius decreases from left to right in a period, which is basically the rows of a periodic table, and it increases as you go down a group, which is the columns. And the reason for this is that going from left to right increases nuclear charge, which decreases atomic radius, and going down a group adds an electron shell, which increases atomic radius. And you can see in the periodic table, as you go down, it gets larger, and as you go to the right, it gets smaller. All right, next is ionization energy. It's basically the amount of energy required to remove an electron from an atom. Generally, ionization energy increases from left to right in a period and decreases down a group. This is because there's more attraction between the nucleus and electron from left to right, which makes it harder to remove an electron, while going down a group, the attraction decreases because there's an additional electron shell and the nucleus is farther from the electrons, which makes it easier to remove electrons. All right, for electron affinity, it's basically the energy released that results from adding an electron to an atom. It also increases from left to right across a period and decreases down a group. And that's because of the increase in attractive force as you go left to right and less down a group because of another electron shell. So basically the same reason. Okay, and then we have electronegativity. It's basically the tendency of an atom to attract electrons toward itself. And it increases from left to right across a period and also decreases down a group. And it's because left to right has more nuclear charge and less atomic radius, so it has more attraction, while down has an additional electron shell. And this is just a periodic table that covers all the trends. As you can see, left to right, ionization energy and electronegativity and all that. And questions. So which element has the strongest electronegativity? Okay. Actually, I think I forgot to add a periodic table, so it might be a little bit difficult to answer this question. Do you mind going to the electronegativity slide?
I think
So,
fluorine.
wait, what'd you say?
He got it correct. He said fluorine.
All right, yeah.
Fluorine as the strongest negativity.
Yeah. Okay, next question. Which element has the smallest atomic radius?
So I think helium. Helium.
William? Yeah. All right. And final question, which element has the largest first ionization energy?
Mm, William.
William, nice job. Yeah, you got it all correct. All right. I think that's it for chemistry today.
All right, for history, we'll be doing Vietnam War. All right, so it started in 1954, and it was between the communist North Vietnam and the Allies in and South Vietnam and their allies. The North Vietnam were called the Viet Cong, and it started due to the Cold War, which, if you forgot, was between the Soviet Union and the United States and their respective allies. The North was under the rule of the Vietnamese Communist Party, led by Ho Chi Minh, and the South was led by Ngo Dinh Diem. In 1955, so the Vietnam War started because Diem started arresting thousands of communist political organizers and propagandists, and the Viet Cong obviously didn't like this, so they started assassinating the Dime's government officials and functionaries. Dime's regime was also quite corrupt, and Dime himself was very distrustful, so he refused to give authority to people other than his family. This led to many non-communist citizens joining the Viet Cong, even though they weren't communist, just because they didn't like the intimidation and corruption of local officials. And then the Ho Chi Minh Trail was a trail used by North Vietnam and the Viet Cong to infiltrate troops into South Vietnam and just transfer supplies. All right, so ARVN, or the Army of the Republic of Vietnam, was at many disadvantages. It was the army for the South Vietnam. So first of all, the high-ranking officers were appointed because of family connections and political reliability, which are not the traits that you are looking for a military officer. They were often lazy, incompetent, corrupt, or all three. And spies had already infiltrated at nearly all levels, ranging from clerks and like drivers to senior headquarter officers. And the support from the US was also not very good because they didn't spend long in the country and they didn't really know the Vietnamese language either. All right, so the Viet Cong also learned ways of dealing with American weapons such as helicopters and tanks. The Vietnamese army was poorly trained, and in this one battle, even a Viet Cong battalion that was surrounded by soldiers and helicopters was able to fight their way out. And New and his wife became involved in a fight against Buddhist leadership because they were Catholic, I believe. So they started spreading Catholic beliefs. And to protest against Diem's regime, a Buddhist monk publicly set himself on fire, as you can see in the bottom right. And it became news that reached major American newspapers. This would later make the US more reluctant to send support. And also, John F. Kennedy dies, followed by Diem less than 3 weeks later. Okay, so the Gulf of Tonkin resolution was passed because the US believed, okay, so at first, the US believed they were making progress, or they were like disillusioned. Um, but these were basically just lies manufactured by Deem and Harkins, who was the commander in charge of US military assistance to Vietnam. To China and the Soviet Union sent aid to the north, I think, through the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And then the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution was passed because the new president, Lyndon B. Johnson, believed that there were two unprovoked attacks that sunk two U.S. destroyers, which didn't really happen. They're both fine. And this resolution allowed the U.S. to take any necessary measures to repel armed attacks and basically just let them be more involved in the Vietnam War. All right, so greater U.S. involvement. It started when the Viet Cong started deliberately targeting U.S. military personnel and bases. So they launched a campaign called Rolling Thunder, which is they just bombed all of like Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos. Um, Laos and Cambodia were bombed because that's where they believe the Ho Chi Minh Trail was. And even after dropping millions of bombs, it didn't really do much to stop the North invasion from North Vietnam. Johnson also approved for hundreds of thousands of troops to be dispatched to Vietnam, all without a declaration of Congress at declaration of war addressed to Congress or an attempt to make the U.S. More prepared for the war economically. And then later in the war, the US pulls out because Americans were becoming increasingly dissatisfied with it. Because they learned that innocent civilians were the main victims of the war. And and also because of increasing American casualties, combined with a lack of evidence that any progress was being made. In a poll claimed that 71% of Americans thought that it was a mistake to send troops, and 58% found the war immoral. From 1965 to 1973, 500,000 men dodged a draft, just showing how they didn't want the war to continue. But America could not quickly pull out because they would lose credibility, but they could also not get more involved because the public would just hate the government more. So then they eventually decide on Vietnamization, which is slowly withdrawing American troops while providing South Vietnam high quality weapons and training so they could fight against North Vietnam better, which didn't really work. But all right, and then the war ended on in March 1973. All U.S. military units had left Vietnam. Nixon, who became the president after Lyndon B. Johnson, had this massive scandal called Watergate, which basically ruined his reputation and made Americans just lose faith in the government. And then Congress moved to block all further involvement in Vietnam. And then in the end, North Vietnam took over South Vietnam and renamed the country to the Socialist Republic of Vietnam in 1976. All right, so here's just some quick questions. What was the Ho Chi Minh Trail?
It was series of jungle.
Yeah, it was a series of jungle paths, I think is what you said. But do you know like what it was used for?
North Vietnam politician.
Wait, could you repeat that? I think I heard North Vietnam. And I'm just gonna assume that you got it right. Okay, so we're gonna move on. Why was the Gulf of Tonkin resolution passed?
Due to Cold War.
Um, Wait, could you repeat that?
Due to
The
Cold War.
Gulf of the
I
Gulf
think
of
he said
Tonkin
due to Cold War.
revolution was passed after the President Lyndon B. Johnson chose to believe that who unprovoked attack had sunk to us U.S. destroyers.
Yes, that's correct, Susie. All right, what was Rolling Thunder?
Rolling Thunder, a campaign of sustained airstrike to halve the North.
Yes, that's correct. By the end of the war, what did the US think about it? It's expressed pretty clearly in the poll that was in two slides before. And also the fact that like 500,000 dodged the draft.
Can you tell us answer?
Okay, the answer is that they generally dislike the war because there's like a few reasons listed on the slide. But because they knew that civilians were the ones that are being harmed the most, which is why they found the war immoral. And the fact that they just didn't want to participate in it. All right. Last question. Which side ultimately won the Vietnam War? So North or South?
South Vietnam.
Uh,
So give
Not
Suso a
yet.
chance to answer.
it was ultimately North Vietnam.
Yeah, so Suso, you got it correct. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so that's the end of history section. If you have any topics you want me to cover next time, then just put them in the chat. The next topic is physics.
All right, so for physics, we're going to be learning about work and energy. So, first of all, what is work? So, work is the application of a force over a distance, and work causes a change in energy. So, here's the formula for work. Work equals force times distance. Yeah, and as you can see, F is force, D is distance, and then the force must be parallel to the distance, which is why sometimes you should use cosine, so they are parallel. And then work is also a scalar quantity. However, you can also have positive work, negative work, or zero work, depending on the directions of your force and your distance. And then next we have energy. So energy can neither be created nor destroyed. So there's two types of energies. There's the kinetic energy, and then there's the potential energy. So kinetic energy, as you can see here, the formula for it is 1/2 mv squared, where m is mass, v is velocity, and the unit is joules. And then the potential energy is mgh, where the m is mass, the g is the gravitational force, otherwise known as 9.8, and then h is the height at where the object is. So this pendulum, as you can see on the right, is a pretty good example of displaying kinetic and potential energy. So as you can see at the top, it would have maximum potential energy and no kinetic energy. And then as the pendulum slides towards the middle, it would be at its fastest velocity, meaning that it has max kinetic energy. So yeah, just keep these two formulas in mind. And then yeah, there's also the work energy theorem, which is pretty important. Work is the change in kinetic energy. So as you can see, based on this equation, positive work would result in increasing kinetic energy, and then negative work will result in decreasing kinetic energy. So here's problem 1. It's a pretty basic problem. If you slowly apply a force of 3 newtons to push a book 2 meters across the table, how much work did you do to the book? So yeah, try to do that question and put your answers in the chat. Or you can say it.
6 joule.
Yeah, that's correct. He said 6.
6? Okay, good job. Yeah, that is 6 is the correct answer. Okay, 6. Yes. All right, good job. So, I mean, since a lot of people got it pretty quick, work equals force times distance, as mentioned before. So we multiply the force, which is 3 newtons, by the distance, which is 2 meters, and we get 6 joules. So yeah, pretty easy problem there. And then here's problem 2, which is a slightly bit harder, but a ball of 0.25 kilograms is striked and moves a speed of 2 meters per second. If the average force of the ball was 200 newtons, what distance did the ball travel? Sorry, I forgot the ball, but yeah, what distance did the ball travel? So here's the equation you have to use is work equals change in kinetic energy. Yeah, you probably want to use that as a hint, and you want to solve for the distance the ball travels. So yeah, try this problem out, and then yeah, tell me what you get. I'll give you guys some time to do it. All right, does anyone have an answer? We're coming close to an answer to this problem. If not, I mean, I guess I could get to the solution if no one really has an idea. But yeah, it is just work equals change in kinetic energy. Okay, so you guys can keep doing it if you are doing it, but I'll just give the solution. So, pretty much the solution, right? We do work equals change in kinetic energy. And as we know, work is force times distance. So force times distance equals change in kinetic energy. And then we isolate distance, which was what we're trying to solve. So distance equals kinetic energy. Could change in kinetic energy over force. And then kinetic energy, as we know, is 1/2 mv squared. And the force is given in the problem, 200 newtons. And so we also know the mass, we know the velocity. So yeah, we can solve and we get 0.25 centimeters. All right. So if nobody has any more questions, this is the end of our teachings. Yeah, so thank you guys for coming. If you guys want to fill out the feedback form, yeah, please go ahead and fill that out. We definitely need more ideas for our teachings, but yeah, thank you guys for coming.